All right, welcome back to Off the Crypto Cuff. I'm your host, Jesse, and co-host Jeff here. This is two friends having a drink, discussing the current crypto market, whatever else may come up while we're doing. Tonight, I'm having Bondstone Triple Oak with an old-fashioned variety.
Yeah, I'm drinking eggnog made with Bardstown uh, Origin Series, bottled in Bond.
Nice. Little eggnog there.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I like
It's season.
Yep. And also we have our first guest tonight, Todd, and so he's going to kind of jump in on some conversations, maybe bring some topics up tonight while we're discussing. So Jeff had something you wanted to start out with here, right?
Yeah, so kind of trying to continue basically a thread of thought that I keep bringing up as we discuss, crypto. And I've mentioned this on X several times and I mentioned here, I wholeheartedly, this is going to be a multi-chain future. I don't think one chain is going to rule them all. And, Jesse and I discussed this, and I think we're both in agreement on that. There's a lot of maximalists out there, and it's kind of, funny and the way to think about it. And I've heard several people describe where we are at effectively in the market. And if you're comparing this effectively to the internet, to a venture capitalist and a bubble, we're still before the dot-com crash. So basically we're building up to this big bubble where everything is going to inflate, and then all of a sudden it's just not going to deflate, it's going to pop. When it pops, all the trash is going to go away. But there's going to be some gems or some diamonds in there, some really good, strong projects for one reason or another will go away. So one thing to think about as we're getting into this market, why to diversify, is out of the ones you think will win in a multi-chain environment, what is their Achilles heel that would actually cause them to get flushed with everything else? So that's the experiment. So I created a list, of 5, just for time's sake. I'm just going to list effectively my top 3. So since this is the top 3, not top 5, don't get angry because I'm sure yours is in there at the top 5, but I'm going to list the top 3. Bitcoin with
ADA. These are your top 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bitcoin with ADA and Algorand.
ADA.
ADA.
When you say ADA.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the Algorand was the other one?
Yep.
Okay.
So the downfall and the reason why Bitcoin could actually go away is I could list a couple of reasons why it could go away. The biggest reason why it could go away and become irrelevant beyond its transaction speed is because of the maximalists, these gatekeepers that see everything else as trash.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's kind of like failure to morph, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Right. Because there is a project called Boss that is actually trying to integrate or become basically a trustless bridge between Bitcoin and ADA to basically bring smart contracts natively into Bitcoin without Bitcoin needing to actually have smart contracts. Mm-hmm. It's very smart, but all these Bitcoin maximalists want to pretend that ADA doesn't exist, Cardano doesn't exist, or anything else because they're all centralized trash. So therefore, and then that's one reason why they could potentially go away. In that vein, Boss actually brings, between Boss, Hydra, and other innovations, brings a lot of awareness onto ADA. Well, it's kind of like the same coin here. I kind of think is it's like if Bitcoin gets washed away for that reason, ADA would get washed with it. It's kind of like taking a shortcut a little bit. I still need to put a little bit more thought of coming up with an ADA specific reason, but I'm sure maybe Jesse has a thought on what could potentially cause ADA to get flushed other than that, which leaves Algorand. Algorand, they've had a huge marketing problem, but it's not just marketing problem. They have that, but when you actually take a look at the chart, anybody coming in and they're trying to do the research, they take a look at this giant red candle when it started life, and that was their failed launch. And Algorand has yet to recapture basically that price level. So, and with the venture capitalists looking for newer companies, they're not going to get VC money in here, which means that it's all about the retail. If you don't capture retail, and if retail is taking a look without good marketing, they're going to see this drop and be like, well, they've been at it for, X number of years. I want to go find something else that's actually on the up instead of something that crashed and never recovered.
So, Jeff, I have a quick question for you. What is the niche that Algorand fills? Like, what is its purpose, right? So this is kind of my novice crypto experience and understanding.
It fills several. I mean, from one the area where it makes it kind of unique is that they claim instant finality. So a lot of blockchains actually talk about finality, or when the actual time that your transaction actually settles on chain. So this is where you can get into a debate, but effectively the way Algorand functions is when you submit a transaction or to go through, there could be a potential delay on how long it takes for it actually to go. But once it basically gets accepted to go into a block, that's the finality. Because the way Algorand's designed is once the block is set for all of the transactions, that block is going to go on chain. There is no forking. So other chains, there's basically they build a bunch of blocks. All the machines in the network are in competition. Then they basically coalesce on which block won. Everything gets thrown away. So that means if you're dealing with smart contracts, then you have to have retry logic, because you have to know that the block my transaction was in failed. So you're not final until you're on chain, whereas Algorand guarantees that once you're in a block, you're going to go on chain. So therefore, the finality is effectively instant.
Okay, so that makes a little bit of sense to me. So Bitcoin operates in the different fashion than what Algorand does.
Yes.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've talked about a lot too on here, is just the actual what the coin can actually do in the real world, and ultimately we think that's what is going to bring the value to anything. Where Bitcoin just doesn't really do anything necessarily. That there's other coins that are doing it way better currently. So the technology is just kind of old, and there's no one's updating it, because there's no ownership of it right now. Like, nobody really knows who created Bitcoin, so that's why we always have a hard time staying behind it. We don't necessarily talk bad about it, but it's just ultimately it's kind of the first one, and we just kind of just know it's not gonna stick around potentially, but it could be a store of value, is what a lot of people say for it. And just because there's so many people that are currently invested in it and hold so much value in it, that's probably why the store value will continue, and hold. But,
so you think that's going to be its main purpose, its main function is a store of value?
Yeah,
potentially, yes. But that could also be the downside, because you take a look at what Michael Saylor is doing. It's like every opportunity he's taking loans against MicroStrategy, his company, buying Bitcoin, and then effectively buying off or paying off the loan and making kind of profit this way. But the percentage of the world that's actually in crypto and the percentage of the world that's in Bitcoin is extraordinarily small. And there's a lot of people that have done the economics and the scale of economics when it comes to basically distribution of goods. if a distribution of good becomes too centralized or somebody's holding too much of it, it effectively loses value. So
okay. Yeah, I know you had mentioned that to me the other day.
yeah, so that's the other side of the risk with Bitcoin right now. And that's kind of like what I'm seeing, and it has me concerned because one of the things that Michael Saylor said is that he wants to try to turn MicroStrategy into a Bitcoin bank. I mean, it's like, I understand kind of what he's trying to do, and he's definitely trying to set himself up for failure. He's trying to set himself up for success, but he's now in this, effectively this loop to where he has to guarantee that the value of Bitcoin goes up because it's now effectively tied to the price of his stock. It's no longer, his stock price is no longer the success of his company. His stock is now pegged to effectively the price of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that recently. Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, it sounds like he changed his whole like way his business operates.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just like, yeah, having, it made sense on the start of it, where his company is highly profitable. He had cash reserves. The dollar is highly inflationary. And then instead of holding on to dollars that are losing value and purchasing power, he basically moved into a stable asset, or an appreciating asset, Bitcoin. That strategy made sense. But what he's actually effectively tilted into is basically turning into this effectively death cycle, but this is just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, the part too is this: we're seeing more and more. It's becoming less of like the average consumer ability to invest in it. You're seeing more and more of the industry, the big businesses investing into Bitcoin. So it's pushing out like guys like us. It's like pushing out the small guys. So it's because they're holding so much of it, it's becoming more commercialized. So it doesn't move as much. If you look at percentages of Bitcoin, what it's moving, the numbers look big, but the percentages are small. Whereas the altcoins percentages are moving much faster and much bigger percentages. So it's for what dollar you are putting in on altcoins right now, you're getting much more back than you would on Bitcoin right now too. But because you got the big industry that are moving into it and they're putting in millions and billions of dollars. So it's, that makes sense for them, but not so much for the average consumer, right? I think that's what. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's just like there is a value proposition, and that's where I was basically trying to war game this out in my hypothesis or my thesis, or basically this game that I'm trying to play is boss, or this trustless bridge, because all three of us, invested in Harmony, and Harmony basically collapsed because they had a trusted bridge. You locked coins in on one side of the smart contract, and you basically get this wrapped coin on the other side of the contract. And basically the contract itself held the tokens basically in trust. There was multiple keys or signatures that were required to be able to unlock this wallet effectively. And basically what happened is somebody opened up the wallet, drained basically all the tokens, all the Ethereum, all the Bitcoin out of the bridge. And when that happened, all the liquidity just disappeared on chain. So basically the only way to prevent a scenario like that is to create a trustless bridge. And that's what BOSS is. So a BOSS is a trustless bridge between Bitcoin and ADA, to where you can actually transmit now Bitcoin instead of, I forget, what is it, like 10 minutes for a transaction?
For Bitcoin? It's like 45 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it's 3 transactions per second on average or something like that. It's like, it's ridiculously slow.
Right.
But now
there's no utility in Bitcoin.
Right.
That's what we're on to.
But with BOSS, now you get utility without actually even realizing, because we've discussed this. I was like, even before I found out that BOSS was a thing, I said that and this is why I'm worried about the maximalists, because the maximalists are not involved. And getting them involved in this is going to be hard. We're selling them on it. Now you're able to actually transmit your Bitcoin at the speed of ADA. You can now actually use your Bitcoin for passive income without even having to buy ADA. Now, will these maximalists? That's what's up for debate, because I seriously have doubts that they will actually acknowledge that any of that development or any of that work was done. They'd rather continue. They'd rather say that, well, we don't want to use Cardano because it's not decentralized enough, but they'd rather use Lightning, which basically has the same problem. It's not sufficiently decentralized. It's still, a network that's on the build out.
Well, you're basically these companies, they're seeing the value in basically attaching themselves to the teat of Bitcoin by supplying a technology that allows people to actually use Bitcoin for utility. And, they're kind of the middle person essentially, and there's value in that, that makes sense. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
So Jeff, you mentioned that the transaction speed for Bitcoin is very poor. It's got poor performance? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they said it takes about 45 minutes to make a transaction for Bitcoin.
So if I had Bitcoin on my side and I wanted to send you guys some Bitcoin, it would take 45 minutes for that to happen?
I think it's more so the using it as a transactional.
All right, I got it right here. Network congestion during peak periods. Network can become congested, slowing down transaction processing. This that can increase transaction times from 10 to 30 minutes to several hours or even days.
Mm-hmm.
Transaction fees. Higher fees can incentivize miners to prioritize your transaction. So now Bitcoin has a similar problem to Ethereum. So basically, you can increase your the fee that you're willing to pay to incentivize basically a node to pick up your transaction and ignore other transactions. So if everybody's doing the minimum and you basically double or triple it, then chances are you might go through. But that means that you're now on a slower network at a higher cost.
It's throttling. It's basically it's throttling is what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas that's why some of these XRP, it takes seconds, and they're doing cross-border transactions. That's their big claim to fame is that they can do a cross-border transaction. And basically what's happening is what you're doing is you're sending US dollars to, let's say, I don't even know, let's say China, China dollars, right? Or the yen or whatever they use over there. And what's happening is they're using XRP. So it goes from the US dollar, transfers to XRP, gets sent across the network, and then gets transferred to yen or whatever it is, right? So that they say takes seconds with XRP, whereas the traditional banks, it takes days. So that's their big claim. The XRP is much faster. Bitcoin. So if you're trying to do the same thing with Bitcoin, depending on the network, depending on a lot of things, it could take up to, would you say 15 to 20 minutes at minimum at best, or days at worst. So that's what we're saying is the actual what Bitcoin can do is kind of not great. It's old, it's old technology. Whereas there's other cryptos that are coming out better. One would be an XRP, and XRP's been around almost as long as Bitcoin. That can move much faster and actually have some ability to do something. And that's where, to us, the value is going to come eventually. Once the crypto market actually comes to the forefront, and with this current, with the Trump administration, that may happen. We'll see. Just my thought. I got a caveat. It's
Hey Jeff, I remember it was probably a few years back when we were actually on the same team, and you helped me get set up with Harmony One. You showed me the transaction speed, I guess, from your crypto wallet over to mine. and you sent me, I don't know, a few cents or something like that. And I remember it was instantaneous. It was impressive.
Yeah. Harmony. And Harmony's definitely unfortunate because, and I, mentioned it. The hack that happened, whether it was an inside job or not, what caused the initial collapse, or what was the first domino fall, was the bridge. Once the liquidity left, there was no native USD, the stable coins on the chain or anything else to provide the liquidity, and the entire Harmony community started to suffer. And then the leadership, in my opinion, failed in several different ways. And the major projects started going off. DeFi Kingdoms was huge. It was one of the biggest exchanges on Harmony. When they left, that was just another, domino. And then once you started to have these exchange collapses, there goes your developers, and there's this huge messaging problem. My thesis right now on Harmony, with everything that happened, and I've mentioned marketing is the biggest issue with Algorand. It's even worse for Harmony, because how do you bring back liquidity? How do you bring back developers? Because without applications, how do you bring back users?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah,
one was supposed to replace Ethereum, right? Ultimately, that's what one was trying to do.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was trying to do, and we did discuss this. Is that it's an Ethereum compatible virtual machine is what they're running, so that means that it's easy to port applications from Ethereum to Harmony. But you have VeChain, EVM compatible, HBAR, EVM compatible. Polygon, which is a layer 2, where a lot of these applications on Harmony fled to, EVM compatible. With all the other EVM compatible chains or side chains that are available, why go back to Harmony without the user base being there? It's a marketing problem, not necessarily a technology problem.
So Todd, are you so you've dabbled in crypto, obviously, and are you looking to get more involved into it? Is that kind of what you're?
Yeah. So Jeff helped me out a few years back with Harmony, and I think I put in a couple $1,000, and I didn't know the reason why Harmony went down, but that what you explained, Jeff, tells me why. So I've been away from it, mostly doing my investing in Tesla thing, right? And that's working out for me pretty well. But obviously, Bitcoin has been coming on very strong. Michael Saylor is everywhere, so I've been watching a lot of his videos, and he is definitely a maximalist. And I mean, he's leading the charge, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around, Bitcoin and the value proposition and how it can be better than just, maybe investing in company stocks or definitely holding dollars. It seems like it does have some value. And you guys have both mentioned, on this call, maybe it's just going to be a store of value. And, the limited supply over time, I think that's appealing because in theory that should help to at least keep the value strong, if not stronger, going forward, right? But this is where I defer to you guys. You guys are definitely experts compared to me. I'm still up and coming,
and not financial advisors.
You guys have many years ahead. You're ahead of me by years, right? So I'm just a relative novice, but I don't know. I like to pick the winners. Like I think Jeff, you had mentioned that earlier. And
we all like the winners.
We all want the winners.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the hardest thing to do, right? You gotta dig in and just research the hell out of these companies, and
it does come down to a gut feeling for me. Ultimately, like you got to look at something and be like, okay, now what's my gut telling me at this point? And honestly, I do a lot of investing based on gut feelings and what I read after, and just kind of like feeling things out. And then ultimately the gut is what it tells me. And we talked about that too, is like right now is not the time to be buying any of this stuff. Honestly, we learned that in the last run is you gotta just kind of like, all right, maybe this is real. Let me throw a little at it, but don't get crazy because it's going to come back down. It's like we're in kind of a bull run right now, and it's appealing, but the gut is telling you to buy right now. But that's when you want to go against your gut, because to me, what we've learned is that you want to buy when it's going down. You want to buy on the downward slopes, because go against what you want, but your gut's telling you to do. It just ultimately you win that way, even short term. That's, I don't know. We've talked about it before. Buy green candles, big red dildos. So it's it's a crypto kid, right?
Yeah,
so,
I think I've heard Jeff say that a couple times.
Yeah, and it's the truth, and especially right now during this market. This market's crazy right now. It's getting mainstream attention. We're seeing, I mean, Bitcoin. When you start seeing Bitcoin in the news, that's what everybody says. Don't buy. That's when you don't want to buy, because that's when everybody's starting to buy. So it's and now we're starting to see XRP. XRP is kind of like coming about. I don't know if you've looked at XRP. XRP is a US based company. They're
Ripple.
trying to, Ripple. Oh, sorry. Ripple is the US based. Ripple is who holds XRP. They're the ones that create XRP. So they're a US based company. They're also doing other things. They're looking at different stable coins, and they're trying to, this is my thing, is like, they're trying to work with the current banking system. They're not trying to go against it. Now, ultimately, they would like to replace it. But if you look at their board, they have a lot of people on the board that actually worked for some big names, worked for the SEC, I think, at one point. So they're trying, it just, there's some writing on the wall for that company to me, that they're really trying to get things done the right way, and work. They literally have gone to the SEC and asked them, like, what are we? What's your guidance? What's your regulatory? They want regulatory guidance from them. Well, then the SEC turned around and sued them. So it's like, it's kind of like they laid their cards out, and then they got their hand slapped. It was, but also, like, a lot of people say that having that lawsuit actually creates it so the SEC can create guidance, and that's what's kind of happened at this point. And they, being a U.S. company, I feel like that our country is going to buy into that. And we were seeing a lot of the U.S. based companies. That's what we're going up for a while in the recent bull runs we've been seeing. So I don't know. It's hard to say what's going to be. It's like Jeff mentioned earlier, is like, this is like kind of the .com thing. We're seeing, there's going to be like the one that comes out and like brings it all out and everybody starts noticing, which is Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's going to be the ones that kind of come behind it and do a better job at it and potentially come above that, it's like, and work their way out. It's just, I think we're in that transition right now happening, just because if the US is ready to get behind crypto, then I think that's when the whole world is going to kind of come together, and it's going to all kind of just sort of happen. And so I think in the next 5 years, potentially, we're going to see something different that we're seeing right now.
Well,
yeah. Personal opinion again.
So, yeah. I see it kind of, the slow, fast, and instantaneous, because we've discussed this kind of before. Is it's not really going to take off until it's seamless and people don't know they're actually using it. Because think about the internet. Is just like the internet was the news anchors was like, I don't need email. That they were just like broadcasting stuff, making fun of the internet. It's a fad and all this in the 90s.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Right. But the thing is that I don't actually remember a lot of the websites that were around, the pre.bomb. Even if they were diamonds or not, but there was eBay and Amazon were the two biggest ones, right? and they actually survived the crash and came out the other side not just stronger, but just especially Amazon just straight up ballooned. But so
they were able to morph was the thing.
Right.
Amazon started out as a book company. They literally were selling books online. That's what they started out.
And now they're a cloud provider that actually happens to sell products.
Right.
But here's the thing that's going to turn things even more is that starting at the end of this year, I think it's the end of this year if I'm reading this right. So this is kind of like one of those AI searches and explanations. So if this is wrong, correct in the comments, please. But it looks like MiCA is going into effect at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. That is the European Union's regulation on stablecoins. Tether is not compliant. Ripple is going for compliance in every jurisdiction, which means RLUSD or the real USD is going to become MiCA compliant, which means it's not just going to be legal here in the US, but it's going to be legal overseas. USDC is MiCA compliant, which is associated to Circle, and Coinbase owns a portion of Circle. And here's something that's actually kind of cool, though, if you wasn't aware, is USDC is USDCA, or the ASA asset, is now transferable between Coinbase and the Algorand wallet. So you can actually buy USDC on Coinbase, transfer it to your Algorand wallet, and then buy your Algorand that way and avoid the high fees on Coinbase. Hot tip.
Okay. Interesting. Not a tip, is that what you said?
No, I said hot tip.
High tip. Okay.
And of course, you don't really
train of thought.
Yeah. But yeah, and the Euro D, which was introduced on the Algorand network, is also compliant. So it's its first introduction, and the way it got its compliance was because of all the features that Algorand provides. So, I mean, there's a lot going on. So that's why I say it's like in my top 5 is XRP. It was in my list. It's just didn't make it with the conversation.
I picked that up. So, Todd, I think you mentioned Bitcoin about, getting into Bitcoin and what you're thinking of doing with that, what the purpose of that is. So it's kind of we're looking at it as store value. Like I said, it's like the gold that we currently have now. It's a place to put your money to potentially increase the value of it, but not lose value in it. It's like, because inflation and stuff like that actually decreased your dollar over time, so that people put their money in gold, so that doesn't happen to it. So it's kind of the same concept with Bitcoin, ultimately, that I think we will see in the long run. Does that kind of
so kind of related to that, Jesse? One thing I heard, I guess, if you compare Bitcoin with gold, I guess the gold. I guess the value of gold can vary based on the supply, right? And if like a new big mine is found that has, a mine is dug and they get a bunch of gold out of it, I guess that can, deflate the overall value of gold, I guess, across, in the country and across the world, right? So with Bitcoin, this is, based on my limited knowledge and understanding, so you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, as I guess the halving process of Bitcoin diminishes the supply like every 4 years or whatever that time interval is. So to me, it seems like Bitcoin has some advantages even over gold. Is that accurate based on what you guys know?
Yes. Bitcoin? Bitcoin has a programmatic fixed supply. So the supply is capped at 21 million. And it's inflationary in the aspect of, it's got a fair release cycle. So every block, whoever mined the block gets rewarded in Bitcoin. So basically every 4 years, that reward gets cut in half for every single block until effectively the last Bitcoin gets mined. And then at that point, the way miners or node runners, basically the network operators, get paid is through basically the transaction fees. So basically when you mine a block, you're not just getting the block reward, you're also getting the transaction fees. So there is theoretical value there as long as the network's getting used. But this also means that Bitcoin is also kind of strongly, deflationary. So the way to think of gold and its monetary cycle of when it was money. So, and this is the way it was kind of explained, that where I understood it was actually kind of neat, is that 1 ounce of gold back in the Roman times, and I think even the Greek times, 1 ounce of gold, it gets you basically a nice set of sandals, nice toga, right? You get really nicely dressed. You would get the best for 1 ounce of gold. So you fast forward, through the centuries, but effectively today gold is worth what is the current value? It's sitting
gold
at
right now?
$2,700. So that's still a nice pair of shoes, a suit, a tie, but potentially a 3-piece suit with a vest, right? So you're well dressed for 1 ounce of gold.
Okay.
Right. So in other words, it has effectively through the centuries maintained its value for what it actually can get you, effectively for your own personal wealth. And the reason why that is because of its stable known inflationary rate. Effectively, when it takes more gold to buy the suit, right? In other words, it's deflated to the point to where you're actually having to spend more to get the products that you want, the products that you need. That means that mine that was now expensive to go get the gold is now effectively cheaper to go get. Whether you had to invent new techniques, you had to hire additional help. So that means that now you're going mining, now you're bringing more gold into the market, but it becomes this fair distribution. And then you're basically driving the price of gold down. I mean, you're driving the price of, you're inflating gold, but to the price of where the goods are, to where, again, 1 ounce of gold gets you back to that suit again, effectively.
Right. It's store value.
Yeah. Well, the other way the supply increases is when the robots start doing the mining of gold, right?
Right. I mean, there are, or we get to the point where Elon Musk can get rockets to Mars. They'll send rockets with robots to asteroids that we know about that have basically several thousand tons of gold in them. We know these asteroids exist. We know where they are. And once you're able to mine these asteroids and bring the gold back, yes, the value of gold goes to zero at that point.
Yeah. So like you said, it's potentially Bitcoin could supersede gold as in a way of store value. That's what...
Again, and their biggest threat, in my opinion, is the maximalists. Because the way you actually keep the value of gold in that aspect, where it actually stays a store of value, is by integrating with other chains and then turn these chains into side chains and use them and Bitcoin as the backing state, or basically the liquidity.
So your view on Bitcoin, Jeff, I'm just wondering, is that causing you not to maybe invest directly in Bitcoin? Or like, how are you doing that? How are you looking at that?
I'm basically looking at where I'm at in my life, where I'm at financially in life, where I'm at in potential goals for retirement, and basically my relevance to risk. So, as Jesse pointed out, and we've pointed out, is that there is effectively this curve. Is that Bitcoin basically had this high rise, and it's basically belling off a little bit, to where it's going to continue going up, and it's eventually probably going to get to $1 million. But that's probably not going to happen this cycle. If this is a normal cycle, it's going to cycle top at around $242,000, and then it's going to drop back down like it always does, about 70 to 80% from that top. and then I might actually consider start DCAing into it, which basically is not that big of a rise. And considering where the starting point was, XRP, Algorand, HBAR, and it's like the list can go on of all of these altcoins that are doing some amazing work in enabling use cases that you can't do on Bitcoin. And there's real world adoption already happening. Like on Algorand, there's SABPay. The SABPay basically banks most of Afghanistan. Most of those people don't have an Algorand wallet. They don't even know they're using blockchain. But 30% of all power bills are actually being paid because of Algorand. And they don't even know they're using it. That's why I say it's like, well, once it becomes ubiquitous and people know don't know that they're actually using blockchain to solve their problem, then it's just going to take over the world. And that's just a small singular country example of that happening. And that's just going to eventually just spread out. It's like, again, with the internet, you knew you were using the internet. You dialed up, you got the really screeching noise, you got connected. Mm-hmm. Somebody picked up the phone, you got disconnected. Now you just pick up your phone and you're just using your phone, but chances are you're using some back-end server. You don't actually know that you're using the internet.
Is that back when you had your AOL email account?
hey, I still have my AOL email account.
AOL served whichever free disk was in the mail at the time.
I still have it.
Hey, Jesse, you and my Uncle Richard, he's like 83 or 84. He's still got his AOL email account.
Hey, I'm never letting it go. Never letting it go. It's going to be a lifetime.
Yeah, you and him are peas in a pod.
That's right. Oh, that's hilarious. Well, I just looked at Bitcoin. I didn't realize it was over 100,000 again. So it's kind of gone up.
Yeah, that's just amazing. I mean, the market cap is it over 2 trillion?
I do not know. Yeah, I would imagine. I think we've hit market cap over 3 trillion now. I'm not really sure.
I think that's the total. Yeah, the total's 3.5.
Yeah. Let's see what the BTC market cap is. I
thought it's just under 2, but it might be at 2 now.
Yeah, it's over 2. It's barely, but it's over 2.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Again, though, like I said earlier, it's if you look percentage wise, the Bitcoin is percentage wise of what you invest and your return on investment is much lower than what you're seeing currently in the altcoins. We're going to see a much bigger return on those. Now, not to say if you didn't get into Bitcoin back in the early 2000s, you'd be sitting pretty well right now. There's no doubt about that. But it's like buying into it now. You're not. I mean, you wouldn't even be able to get a full coin, But the idea is, and we've talked about this in the past, is you're getting a fraction of the coin. So you're just putting your money into a place that, let's, like Jeff said, if it goes up to 250,000, right now it's 100,000, you're going to double your money. You're going to throw $1,000 in, you're going to have $2,000, $2,500,
But I want to interject real quick.
But the return is not, percentage wise, is not as great as you would see in some of these other ones, because we're early adopters in these other ones. And that's what you got to remember.
Sure. Yeah, I know you guys are real close with all the altcoins. So
yeah,
that makes sense what you said.
Yeah. Right. If you did buy, start DCAing or buying in 2002, that's where the bottom hit for Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. It was at 15,460. So from bottom.
What year was that?
2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago. I thought you said 2002.
No, 2022.
22. Okay.
2022. Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah. Bottom out December 2022, around 16,000.
Yep. And from that bottom, it's up 554%.
Yeah.
So, but Jesse, right? Like if that example you gave was like, right now it's 100,000, maybe it goes to 250, and I don't know, a year or more.
I would say we're looking at less than a year for it to the top off.
Okay.
Within the next 6 months. Yeah.
But let's say you're willing to hold it longer than a few years, maybe you go 5 to 10 years. And if you believe that it's going to go to $1 million, then you have the potential to 10x your investment.
100% agree.
Right. Yeah. If I'm buying for the long term, you basically said, I'm going to put in $100 a week until, whenever, and you just start buying and that's it. You forget about it. Yes, that is a valid strategy.
Store value.
Yeah.
Again, goes back to that because of the fact that inflation, what's inflation going to look like over the next 10 years? Your dollar is going to decrease in value if you just hold the dollar bill in cash versus sticking to some sort of asset that actually increases as time proceeds.
Yeah, 100%. I get that. I align with what you said.
Yeah. I'm very like we're all obviously we're very low level investors, but it's trying to understand how to do it. And there's different buckets ultimately, right? You have money. You're like, hey, I want to put this money. I have this chunk of change I want to put over here, and you want to put it somewhere where it's like, in the long term, that money is going to be worth more than it is now, but not crazy amount. It's just going to hold some value to it. It's not going to. I'm not going to lose money on it, but I'm going to hold some value to it. That's where you want to put your Bitcoin potentially. Like that's your Bitcoin pot, and then maybe you have another pot that's like, hey, I can afford some risk here. If I lose this money, it's not going to kill me. I'll be fine, but it could hit big, and then you're sitting better, in 5 years. It's kind of what you got to kind of balance out when it comes to this stuff, and obviously, you're in the stock market too. So it's like, again, another bucket, it's like you have the stock market buckets, and it's the same scenario in the stock market. Honestly, there's stuff that, honestly, like looking hindsight now, like I was invested in Tesla, like you were, early on in 2020, did really well in it, sold it. And I was like, man, hindsight, I should have held on to it because I think it split at least one more time, maybe twice now since then. And I would be sitting, and I could have added more to it and being sitting in a much more better situation. But that would have definitely been a bucket of like a long-term bucket. If again, 2020 is when we all got into this. This is when we started learning about. I started learning about the stock market and then the crypto market at the same time, and just understanding investing and understanding how to do it. And I don't know. It's just it's kind of neat when you start really thinking about it, just how you do things, honestly. And understanding the difference in the way to invest differently and have a kind of diversified portfolio and long term versus short term, things like that. But anyways,
sure. So Jesse, just to let you know, so the splits were the first split. I don't know the exact timing and like the exact date, but the first one was a 5-for-1, and then a couple years later it went 3-for-1. So however many shares you used to have, you would have 15 times that if you would.
Yeah, I know. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's I know. It's hindsight. It's always that's what Jeff and I talk about that all the time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
So Jeff and I work together, and I was probably touting Tesla occasionally with Jeff.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I did that much, but once in a while I would. But I would say this to both of you. I mean, I kind of like this is why I'm looking at Bitcoin a little bit closer, because I see some similarities to Tesla, right? So it's just like if you're willing to go long term, even at like, I don't know, like I'm looking at Bitcoin, it's $100,000. That's a ridiculous price. But if it's going to go to $1 million or more, then I need to look at it. I'm a lot more patient in my older years, right? Even though I have less years to live on the planet. But I'm a lot more patient and I'm willing to wait. And, Tesla the same way, right? I would say for you guys, even if you jumped into Tesla and or Bitcoin right now, I don't know, 5 or 10 years from now, I think they're both going to be a lot higher than where they are right now. And that one component of the value proposition for Bitcoin is it fends off inflation and just the increase in prices. Like that you can't really get that with any other investment, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Even right now is a bad time to buy in general because everything's kind of gone up and we're probably going to have a pullback. We've already seen a little bit of pullback in the crypto market. Honestly, I haven't been paying attention a whole lot to the stock market, so I'm not sure what it's been doing. I know it has gone up though, but I don't know if it's pulling back. That's the time, the pullback's when you want to buy. You want to buy on the lows, sell on the highs is what they say. But yeah,
So
I agree with you 100%. No matter when you jump in, it's not a bad time if you think it's going to continue to go up, and that's what we believe in all this.
Yeah, and that's why I'm trying to understand Bitcoin more than I know now, and to see if it maybe it's another investment that I move into, maybe do some dollar cost averaging, because I am not diversified at all. Maybe just a little bit more than I used to be. I picked up some Palantir stock, but I'm like 99.8% like Tesla, and I need to look at some other options because if Elon goes down, there's going to be a problem, right?
Yeah.
And he's the fixture there, and he's leading the charge, so to speak. And if anything happens with him, like, it's going to be a lot of trouble, and I need to think about diversifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff. I'm going to jump in real quick. The thing about Tesla, a lot of people I learned is that Tesla's not a car company. Tesla's a technology company. So as long as tech continues to advance, I think Tesla will do well, even potentially without Elon, because they've kind of developed themselves. Now I think the next wave that's happening right now with Tesla is AI. Obviously, they've invested a lot of money in AI, so that's why they're not, like you said, no time's a bad time to invest in Tesla at the moment. But sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I do agree on having the store of value, and that's if this does turn into a normal cycle. And the reason why I always caveat this is because there's always this talk about, hey, there's the super cycle's here, it's going to happen. I have my doubts, just because of the hype and everything else. I think it's looking more and more like a normal cycle. But again, things can happen. If it's a normal cycle, take profit, make things a little bit easier. And then when start DCA again with, after taxes and all the other things that we have to do, start DCAing and then getting into Bitcoin, probably taking a look at Boss. But my biggest thing and my biggest strategy that I've been looking at is that, and I've already been doing this. I started doing it on Harmony. And then I started, even before it collapsed, I was actually starting to do it on Algorand as well, as being a liquidity provider and going for liquidity rewards. Is like, how do I put my money to work in this market and earn passive income? So when I start branching outwards, it's like I'm going to be looking at Bitcoin, but not just from the asset of just holding it and waiting for it to go up. Is how do I take advantage of the Bitcoin, the ADA network with Boss, to where I could be a liquidity provider and then have that money work for me. When I start getting at stocks, I want to look at stocks that provide a dividend. So that way, is like at a certain point, because I'm still young enough, is like I want to retire early. Is like, how do I replace my work income? That's effectively what my goal is. Is how do I, how do I retire early? How do I replace my work income? How to where I could just start doing other things, productively with my time.
You want your money to make money for you while you're sleeping. That's ultimately the goal.
Yes.
In life, as far as being untethered to a job that you have to go to daily. That's what. Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah, Jeff, that makes sense what you said on the crypto side. You know, if you have some Bitcoin, you want to leverage that store of value, right?
Mm-hmm.
To make it available, I guess, for others to use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
Because that's the whole idea, is that, you know, when you're self-custodying or whatever, is you don't need a bank. You actually become your own bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, so you
Yep.
pull up on Jeff, you pull up this thing on the screen here. This is, I can't see it very well. But.
Oh, it's yeah. Since we were talking about Bitcoin, I brought up my Bitcoin chart, and I guess it might be blurry for you guys, but it should be clear in the video for the audience.
No, it's small. I'm on small screen. So
yep. So basically, the blue line is the 1618 Fibonacci sequence. This is where I'm getting my 102,000 first, you know, min value for this cycle. That's where I'm getting that idea from. So you can actually see that it came red underneath it and it's now sitting below that line. So I still think it's going to probably come up and finish off above it potentially before it really crashes, but it did wick at that. And again, for the audience, these are, each candle represents a week. So I'm not a day trader, so I'm not looking at 4 hour. I'm not looking at 15. I'm trying to get the best possible picture for me to come up with a long-term plan. And so far, the weekly charts actually work out fairly well for that. And they chart really well too. So you can actually see that on this red line, the green line, the blue line, those are the EMAs. So you actually have the 7-week average, the 25-week average, and the 99-week average. So effectively, we're just drawing this picture. And then down here is what another thing that Jesse and I look at is the relative strength index. So you can actually see it's just like Bitcoin became oversold over here. It dipped down, came below the 50. And then when that happened, it reversed course and came back up again. And that was a sideways trend that happened in here where everybody was like, it's not making it past the all-time high. It's not making, you know, everybody was panicking. But they didn't realize is that there was this massive curve or this massive growth of liquidity coming in, became way oversold, right? So it needed time to basically recover and basically get its strength back. So, you know, these are very simple, you know, I don't do like the white coffee accumulation and try to figure out, you know, the ABCD, you know, trends or whatever. I try to keep it simple and use the tools that I understand, you know, just to give me an idea of what's going on and where the state is. You know, that's why I say it's like, if you're a trader, buying Bitcoin right now is a bad idea because this zone, once it's above 100 inside of here, we're now inside of price discovery because we're outside of effectively history. There's no history for what's going to happen next. It's all guesswork. But if you're DCing in, you have a long-term plan and you're going to stick to that plan. Okay, do what you're going to do. If it's my money, you know, yeah, okay, fine. But I'm just going to just hold and wait because again, oops.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. Let me log
So
this.
Jeff, what is your timeline? Are you trying to get out in like 5 years, 7, 10? What is your timeline?
When I'm able to.
As soon as possible.
Yes.
ASAP.
Okay.
So if you take a look, I'm drawing a box. This is basically a percentage box. So let's say it did make it to 242,000. That's my blow off top. That's it. You know, it goes all the way up. 80% down is back to $20,000. No, that's find that line. That's $47,000.
You think that's the bottom?
I think that's going to be the bottom if it's a normal cycle.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of disagree with the super cycle scenario you're talking about. Not this not being a super cycle, only because of the news right now. Only because of the administration that's coming in.
So you're saying it's going to happen?
I do. I don't know. I think it's going to be bigger than what we think, just because of the stars are aligning. I think we're kind of getting into that breakout point of like now crypto is going to be a little more especially if we adopt it fully here in the U.S.
Jesse, I think you're exactly right. I totally agree with what you just said.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Jeff. I know the charts are saying differently, but also like,
well,
we're entering into unknown territory just because like there's so much more involved into it in the world versus before it was just sort of the 2% that are in the market. Where now we're expanding that percentage, I think.
Yeah, Jesse. So that was kind of one of the topics I was, I have available. That brought to the table for this discussion, and I got a few points, but the title of it is called "Perfect Storm," right? So we've got a new administration. They're pro AI. They're pro crypto. They're bringing in amazing, super strong players like for each of the departments. And like, there's going to be a new AI and crypto czar that is very strong. And he's been a technology guy. I think he's from Silicon Valley area, David Sachs. So you got some really strong players like, coming into power and providing, guidance, on very, obviously these are, this is technology and very technical aspects of that technology, and there's going to be new policy and new guidance, and I think these players are going to help to kind of mold it and get it on track. And one thing I heard about this guy David Sachs is, he's tasked up with making I call it Team USA, like this is going to be the crypto capital of the planet. And I don't know. I just see a lot of good stuff coming in, already and over the coming months and years, at least for the next 4 years.
Yeah, no, I agree. And maybe like, maybe you're right, Jeff, because maybe it's not a big.
I'm not saying it's not going to happen. Well, the idea or the game theory here is that ultimately markets effectively work by people working through their own self-interest, right? So in other words, you have basically not just each individual doing their own thing, but then it's like this, now there's suddenly this crowd doing a thing. But sometimes you can poison a crowd and get them to do stupid stuff. Do you take a look at when the pandemic hit, stores sold out of toilet paper for some reason, right?
Yeah.
So, you're putting into the zeitgeist the idea
for some reason, something that was created here is made in the U.S. and stores are selling it.
Right. Yeah. Effectively, it's just like, bubbles get created, bubbles pop.
Yeah.
Right. And all it takes is somebody over leveraging, overbuying, and then you have basically a tipping point. So basically, yes, I do see at a certain point you'll end up with like, this is the super cycle. This is it. Money's coming in. It's like very euphoric. Everybody's really excited, and all of a sudden, it doesn't just pop; it explodes.
There's no support for it,
right? And then there goes the support, and then there's this sudden collapse. And then
I agree. It could hold true, honestly.
And that's where wealth transfer happens, because then the wealthy come in, buy pennies on the dollar. Yeah. There's historical reference to this. You take a look how the Rothschild, I think it was the Rothschilds, got their wealth. Is they had an inside spy on the war with Napoleon. That spy made it back before the reports did of who won the war. They had inside knowledge, which was Napoleon lost. They spread a rumor that Napoleon won, caused the English stocks to crash. They bought up the stock market, pennies on a dollar. And then when the news came in that the British actually won, the prices went up.
They went the other way, yeah.
And basically that's how they got their wealth.
Yeah. Wow.
It's just like, well,
I love it when you pull history like that. I want to tell you that that's good history right there. That's yeah. Again, was every 5 years, 4 years? What is the cycle of Bitcoin?
They're having cycles every 4 years. And
Every
here's
4
other
years.
news for you.
So
Until,
we're right on that cuff of like, hey, we're hitting that we just hit that 4 years. We're running into this new administration, half a year into it. I guess over these next 4 years is when they're going to really make the statement of crypto. It could potentially at the end of the next 4 years, we could really see something too. Yeah, another whole.
I'm repasting into the chat for you. Because it was an article on X, so I mean, I don't know how often y'all follow those links, but it's a rumor right now. I can't go on my Google list to verify it, but apparently this is through BitGo. Apparently, El Salvador, now that they've actually not only collected a bunch of Bitcoin like they promised they would, they're actually using volcanic energy for their mining machines to mine Bitcoin. They're going to use that as a national reserve to back a stable coin built on top of Hedera.
Okay. Could the dollar follow this path? Yeah.
So again, Bitcoin being the store of value.
Yeah. I mean, people, I get it. I get why people are so like just bought into Bitcoin. And again, sure.
But this does show is that Bitcoin is not actually working as a currency, even though that it's legal tender in El Salvador. This article is a double-edged sword. It's saying that it is phenomenal for this purpose. We're going to make it basically a backing asset. But for your daily use and to pay your bills, use this.
Yeah, H bar. Well, what I would do is invest in H bar.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, just saying.
Not financial advice.
I mean, it's again, we go back to the whole bucket situation I talked about earlier, long term versus short term. You know, diversifying your portfolio. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's a balance. That's what it boils down to. So, well, I am out of drink. We've been going strong. This has been a good one. You know, we've been. Todd, appreciate you jumping on with us. I think you definitely brought a different aspect to things and created a little more. I don't know if you want to say controversy, but just at least
chaos.
Chaos. Yeah, exactly. It's
definitely off the cuff
wherever I go.
Yeah. No. It's we definitely needed this. It was good. And I appreciate you coming on with us. So I'm done. I've emptied my glass a second time. So
I do have one
our rule. Go ahead.
I have a go back. Jeff, it reminds me and you of our stand-up meetings. Right? With Bob and company, Bob and Bernie and company.
Yeah.
Maybe, I would say, I think the likelihood of this, and I don't, you guys know way more than I do at this point. So, the super cycle versus a normal cycle. You guys are way ahead of me on that, but I would just leave, if I were a betting person, right, I would put money on like the potential for the super cycle is higher than just maybe a regular cycle. And the reason why I say that is because, I guess probably millions of people have been on the sidelines for, I don't know, the past 3 or 4 years. They have, they came out of the stock market, right? And they moved into money markets, right? And my dad, who is he's going to be 84 in a few months, he's a prime example of this. He moved a lot of his wealth, a lot of his funding out of the stock market over into a money market that was paying him 5% for, I think, a couple years or more, right? And he was, I don't know, he had 7 figures in there. So it was a steady income stream and, generating interest, a lot of interest every month. And, it's super stable. He didn't have to ride any roller coasters at all with any other investments. And what I've heard is that people that were on the sidelines, it was to the tune of $6 trillion. And now that a new administration is, coming into power, and the whole dynamics of the country and the stock market and the crypto markets has totally changed. And I think all of that funding, maybe not all of it, but a lot of it's going to be coming back into the stock market and into the crypto markets, into Bitcoin and some of these altcoins that you guys are talking about. So I think the potential for a super cycle versus a normal cycle is higher there. It's higher for the super cycle.
But I'm not saying the super cycle is not going to happen. What I'm saying is that be cautious of people saying that it is already in effect. Is effectively what I'm saying, especially when you take a look at the closest mirror that I have. Again, I'm going back to the dot bomb because I lived through it. I joined the Air Force because of it. Is you had Amazon before. It actually went up in value significantly. It crashed with everybody else. And people were buying when it was like $20, $30. Afterwards, the news were calling these people stupid. And then consider how long it took, right, over time for Amazon effectively not just to recover, but to go astronomical, right? And all these other companies that came online. Is we're going to basically head into this this term where, yes, people are going to come in. The entire market's going to balloon. It's going to look like the super cycle. Because when they say the super cycle, effectively, we've been in these tight 4-year cycles. We go up by a lot. We crash down 80 to 90%. We go up, we crash down 80 to 90%. 4 years like clockwork. The super cycle is Bitcoin goes up, hits basically some kind of stable value, and then runs flat. In other words, it found its value in life, or everything else is now priced in Bitcoin. That's what's going to happen. That's effectively the super cycle. So basically, my theory is we're going to have this fake out. Bubble's going to balloon. Liquidity is going to come in. The printing presses are effectively going to break, right? And that bubble's going to pop. When it pops, then you have the flush. That's my game theory. Then after you have the recovery period, that's the super cycle. That's my theory.
Okay.
Is that a better explanation?
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. All right.
Well, on that.
All right.
On that note,
All right.
We'll call it.
Everybody.
Hey, this is Off the Crypto Cuff. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jesse, one of the co-hosts, Jeff, and our guest Todd today. Appreciate you coming out.
And don't forget to like, share, and comment below.
All right. See you next time.